Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes may need a new identity in 2025, and I think I have the perfect idea.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. This episode is brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox, no console needed. Head to amazon.com/firetv or /locked on to learn more. We're also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcast. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so you don't miss out on a moment of the coverage. Like I said, I'm Kevin Borba, host of Locked On Buffs. I also cover all things college football for Athlon Sports. And I think I have the perfect idea for Colorado, for Deion Sanders heading into 2025, because I think there's going to be a bit of an identity crisis for this team, right? They are losing a lot of talent. And let's just be quite frank, right? They are losing two of the best players in college football, in Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders. They're losing the best wide receiver core, or one of the best wide receiver cores in college football. And they are replacing the offensive line again. Defensively, obviously, you lose Travis Hunter, corner, best corner in the country, even though he wasn't up for the Thorpe Award. Regardless, I digress. We know how good he is. And you lose your two linebackers. And it's like, okay, what is more, if we're talking about contention, because this is what it comes down to, right? When we look at a team, we think of them in terms of how well are they equipped to contend for the playoff, for the Big 12, whatever it is. And so using the playoff teams as an example, I'm going to show you guys why I think it's way easier for Colorado to have a defensive identity than to have an offensive identity in 2025, simply because you're bringing in a new quarterback. You're going to have 4 new offensive linemen, most likely. You're going to have an all-new wide receiver core, probably a new starting running back, or maybe a new starting running back, and you don't have Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter to consistently bail out Pat Shurmur, and some play calling that I thought at times was suspect. I think obviously Shedeur had the ability to audible and change the calls. That being said, I wasn't always wowed by the play calling, right? So you have Robert Livingstone, who arguably one of the best coordinators in college football that nobody knows about. I think people know about a little bit more. He got a massive extension. The New Orleans Saints came knocking. They said, hey, we want you to be our defensive coordinator. And Colorado was able to retain him. And I think that was a big move. Now, let me explain the two reasons why I think Colorado has a better shot at being a defensive-minded team. For starters, I think they kept a nice chunk of their unit intact, right? I think you have Samuel Kunalola coming back. You have Keaton Wade coming back. You have the corners, Preston Hodge, DJ McKinney, RJ Johnson. Those guys are going to look real good. I think the addition of Tafik Byer, the safety, we had him on the show a while back. I think he's one of the most underrated transfer portal additions in all of college football. I think he'll be good, right? So right now we're looking at a strong group, and then they're bringing in Jeheim Oatis, who's at one point the number one transfer portal player, or the number one player in the portal, at defensive tackle. Obviously a bit of a risk there because he was a former highly touted recruit that hasn't really lived up to the billing, but you bring in Noah King, 4-star safety. He spent a couple months at Kansas State, but he's a guy who I'm excited about. Tion Parks, a corner from Illinois State, who's really one of the more underrated additions of this class. You bring in Tavian Coleman, defensive lineman from Texas State, who's going to help clog the middle. Kylan Salter is a linebacker that has potential to make an impact. And then Reginald Hughes, Gabriel Lightfoot, they went all in on defense. And I think what we saw from Robert Livingstone was he's going to adapt to what players he has, right? He came into Colorado with no playbook and said, we're going to figure out what we're good at and we're going to play that way. I think that changes this year, right? I think they're going to figure out a way to mask what I think is a weak linebacker unit. I think they're going to figure out ways to put their corners in position to succeed and their pass rushers in position to succeed. So, like I said, I think I have more faith in Robert Livingstone. That's reason number one. They bring in talent, and I think I have more faith in Robert Livingstone to have his unit excel compared to Pat Shurmur. Also, we have learned, and if you haven't already, that defense is really what wins championships. So I ran through a study, did a little data collection, and 8 out of the 12 college football playoff teams had top 30 offenses. 9 of the 12 had top 30 defenses, and 6 of them had both, right? So it's very rare. Only half of the top tier teams in college football are able to have a top 30 defense and top 30 offense. That being said, when it comes to defense, 50% of the sample, so of the 12 teams, successful programs have to have performance on both good sides, but the average rank on offense was 27th, and the average rank on defense was 25th, right? The best teams in college football have a top-tier defense, right? I think everyone is enamored with this idea of like, hey, bring in all these playmakers, bring in these quarterbacks, bring in these offensive-minded head coaches or these offensive-minded whoever's, and we'll show them, right? Like, here's the teams that, and I did a breakdown of each of them, right? And I won't give, I mean, I guess I could. Oregon had top 30 in both. They were 15th on offense, 22nd on defense. They were kind of a weird anomaly because they were one of the handful of teams, I think it was 6 teams that had both, but they ended up not doing much, right? They ran into Ohio State. It was ugly. Georgia, 51st on offense, 30th on defense. They were bounced. Boise State was 8th on offense. Shout out to Ashton Genty, might I add. 60th on defense. They were bounced, right? ASU was 28th on offense, 38th on defense. They were bounced after their first game. Granted, all top 4 seeds were bounced, so really tough comparison there. The rest of the field, Texas had the 3rd-ranked defense. They won 2 playoff games. Penn State, 7th-ranked defense. We remember how they did, right? Notre Dame, 11th-ranked defense, made it to the title game. 55th offense. Ohio State, number 1 defense, 30th offense. They were literally at the bottom of this, I guess, sample size, if you will, for the offense, but top of the sample size for defense. And guess what? Guess who won the title? Ohio State. Tennessee, 6th on defense, 15th on offense. They kind of ran into the juggernaut that was Ohio State. They're kind of a moot point. And then SMU, 26th on defense, 27th on offense. They, unfortunately, were obliterated by Penn State. And then Clemson, 69th on offense, 69th on defense, 11th on offense. So the teams that were more offensive oriented, Boise State, Oregon. Well, and we're going with teams that had better offenses than they had defenses. Oregon, Boise State, Arizona State, Tennessee, SMU, and Clemson. Those 5 teams were all bounced, right? None of those teams won a game. So if you want to contend in college football, you need to have a defense that can carry you. You need to have a defense that can sort of shift games, control games. And I think that's where Colorado comes into play here, right? I think you really have to, I mean, someone in the comment section saying Oregon not doing much. Oregon, when it mattered most, they got obliterated in the playoff, right? That game wasn't even close. Like, Oregon had a really good regular season, and then obviously didn't go well. So I get the Oregon thing, but what I'm saying is the teams that had the most success had better defenses than offenses. And even all of these teams, 9 out of the 12 had top 30 defenses. So if you want to succeed in college football in this playoff format as is, you need to have a defense that could get you there. And so when I look at this Colorado team as currently constructed, I have more faith in the defense than I do in the offense because I have more faith in Robert Livingstone calling the plays, drawing up new schemes for this unit, and then I do in Pat Shurmur kind of figuring things out with Shedeur Sanders or without Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. Because let's take a look at where Colorado ranks in this equation. Total offense. And this is partially because Colorado, doesn't have a run game at all. 69th in total offense. And that was with a generational 2-way star, really good quarterback, generational quarterback for the program, I would say. Obviously, I think that people are going to get on me for that because of the NFL draft. Defensively, they were number 50 in the country. What is more likely? A defense that ranked 50th in the country and I think upgraded at most positions. I think the defense line is better, the interior defense line, that is. I think the pass rushers are still really good. I think they upgraded at safety. And I think the corner unit is probably a slight step down, but still going to be really good because obviously you lose Travis Hunter. That's a tough blow, but I still think the corners are going to be really good. The linebackers are the weak spot. What's more likely? That unit where I would say relatively overall has improved or at least remained the same, which was good last year. What's more likely? That unit improves or an offense that has pretty much knew everything and Pat Shurmur calling plays. And I think a lot of people were critical and were starting to realize that Pat Shermer's play calling wasn't as great as maybe some would want you to think. But at the end of the day, he had Deion Sanders and Travis Hunter bailing him out. He had 3 NFL wide receivers, right? I think that sort of masked a lot of issues. I think Shedeur Sanders, if I'm not mistaken, I don't remember the exact ranking, but of all the quarterbacks in the NFL draft class, I believe I saw a stat that said he had the least average yards per attempt, which means a lot of their stuff was just quick passing games, letting these guys make plays after the catch, right? So this is a pretty big year for Pat Shermer because if things are rocky at first, Deion Sanders has never shied away from making a coordinator change. I think he has had a new coordinator, if I'm not mistaken. He has had 5 coordinators or 6 coordinators in 5 years, counting Jackson State. He had a roughly, I think, I know for a fact Shedeur Sanders had 4 or 5 coordinators in his 3 years of college football. So, or 4 years, 5 coordinators in 4 years, excuse me. So Deion Sanders is not afraid to pull the trigger on making a move at offense coordinator. They brought in Byron Leftwich. They also have other people on this staff who have called plays before, or at least who could be due for an opportunity to call plays. And I think I'm really high on the defense. The offense concerns me. I think they have a lot of good players on individuals. On paper, it looks really good. But again, we have 4 new offensive linemen. The run game has never been good under this regime, right? Colorado has had the worst ranked rushing attack in the country the past 2 years, and now they don't have a top tier quarterback and a top tier 2-way star to mask those issues. So I am all in on Colorado being a defensive oriented team. The best teams in the country have top tier defenses, and a top tier offense is complementary. But we have seen teams in the past who have a top tier offense and they don't win games, right? Oklahoma with Baker Mayfield, with Kyler Murray, with Jalen Hurts, right? They were really good offensively, didn't work out. The one offense where you could point to and be like, well, this team had a really good offense and they won at LSU, which was a generational offense. So once in a lifetime offenses can possibly carry your team. And I'm telling you right now, I don't think this Colorado offense is a once in a lifetime offense like the Joe Burrow one. That's just what it is, right? So I think you need to rely on the defense. Sorry, I'm reading a question. How can you blame the run game when Deion only allowed 6 to 8 design run plays per game? I think that's on Pat Shermer. I think that's on Shadeur. I've said this many times before. I have never been a fan of how uncommitted Colorado is to the run game because last year there was a stat that I myself discovered, not really a stat, just a commonality, that when Colorado ran the ball, I think the number was 14 times or more with a running back. They were, I believe it was like 5-1 or 6-0. They hadn't lost a game. And the other games that they had not, they lost. They were 0-4 in games when they did not commit to the run. So Colorado has never committed to the run, which in essence is kind of Pat Shermer's fault. And I think this is going to be a really big year for Pat Shermer because we're going to see, is he that good of a play caller or did he have a lot of help from his 2 stars? So at the end of the day, Colorado should be a more defense-oriented team. I think they have the players. I believe in Robert Livingstone more than I believe in Pat Shermer. And defenses win championships. That's all I got to say. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the must-land recruits from Colorado's visitor weekend this upcoming week. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices, no console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6. They have the latest technology for elevated playing with Wi-Fi 6/6E and auto low latency mode advanced technology. Fire TV Stick 4K delivers smoother, more responsive gameplay with lightning fast speeds you need to stay competitive. Because obviously we all hate when we're online and all of a sudden someone's got the ball and they're running down the field because you're lagging. You don't have to worry about that with the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K because they got that good latency. They got that good speed. So head to Amazon.com/FireTV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, share this with a friend. Give me 5 stars wherever you get your podcast. That way I can keep my job and we can continue to have fun covering the Colorado Buffaloes. Let's talk about it. I did a full segment yesterday on this, and I want people to know Colorado has a monster recruiting weekend coming up this weekend, right? They have a ton of talented blue chip recruits. And then it was also revealed today that they are going to be hosting a linebacker from North Alabama, Sean Myers. He is expected to visit, or is scheduling a potential visit, I guess is how it was being reported. 6'2", 220 pounds, 22 starts at North Alabama. He had 105 tackles, 8 for a loss, 2 picks, and 6 pass breakups. So let's talk about this list. So there are 7 guys that I know of that are confirmed to be in attendance. I could be missing one, but these are the 7 that I know, counting Myers. You have Cedarian Morgan, 5-star receiver, 6'4", number 13 player in the country, 70 catches for 1,100 yards, 14 touchdowns this past season. Dorian Barney, 4-star recruit, 50 offers, played high school ball with Julian Lewis, was at one point committed to Alabama. Donovan Webb, out of Texas, 4-star athlete, primarily a safety, but plays a little bit of running back as well. Has programs like Michigan, Ohio State, TCU, Baylor going after him. 5 picks last year. Genevre Carr, excuse me. I feel like I'm butchering that. I apologize. IMG offensive lineman, 6'4", 336. Big dude. Colorado needs offensive lineman always. 4-star safety, Jordan Deck, 42 offers, Ole Miss, Penn State, Baylor, UCLA coming after him. Julius Miles, 6'6", 210 pounds, tight end, wide receiver hybrid, whatever you want to call him, 27.5 points per game, 10.7 rebounds in basketball, which, I mean, I know this isn't basketball. Still impressive. He had 59 catches for 895 yards and 7 touchdowns. So there's 7 visitors. And I think realistic, a perfect weekend, like obviously, is landing all 7. Do I think that's going to happen? Probably not. So I think a successful weekend for Colorado is you bring home 3 commits, right? And I'll highlight the ones where if you bring home these 3, automatic win, and all of a sudden business is booming. For starters, I'm not in love with Colorado's transfer room at all. Their transfer room, their linebacker room at all. So they offered North Alabama transfer Sean Myers. He's aiming to visit as potentially as soon as tomorrow. So he's very high on this offer. Like, he is very committed to finding the other a possible landing spot. The other schools that have reached out to him are Pitt. So beating out Pat Narduzzi would just be iconic because of all the what that Pat Narduzzi has talked about Deion Sanders. Jacksonville State, which is actually where Charles Kelly is. So Deion versus Charles Kelly, little head coach versus former coordinator rivalry there. Kent State and Jackson State. Obviously not the biggest offer list, but again, Colorado needs more depth. They need more talent. And I think that's where Myers comes into play here. So we'll see how that goes. I think he is a must. The biggest splash, and if you just land this recruit by himself, I would consider this a big splash off ranking alone, is Cedarian Morgan, right? You land a top 15 recruit in the country who has Alabama and Auburn going after him. And I think that's a pretty successful trip or successful visit. He's an Alabama native, so you'd be prying him out of the grasp of the 2 Alabama schools. And it's one of those things where it's like you could have a tremendous weekend with just one commitment. It just depends on who that commit is. But again, 5-star, talented guy, or big receiver. Give Julian Lewis weapons for years to come. And they play freshmen right away. And that is the one pitch that Colorado can make that most programs, I think, will try to make, but I don't know if they can prove it. But Colorado has always played youngsters right away, right? It was Dylan Edwards in year 1. Cormani McLean didn't play as much as I thought he would, but he still got a shot, right? Michael Welch this past year, he was thrown into the fire. Jordan Seaton was a starting left tackle immediately. Like, they will start you right away if you're ready. So if I'm Colorado, I want Myers, I want Morgan. And then of these other guys, I'm looking at Dorian Barney as probably the one I'm most confident in the sense of the Julian Lewis commitment, or Julian Lewis connection, excuse me. He played high school ball with him. He had 13 picks. He's a ball hawk, right? I think Colorado having a lockdown corner is always going to be a thing, right? When you have Deion Sanders coaching you, I think chances are Colorado's going to have a really good secondary or cornerback room. And I really think Colorado would be loving a commitment from Morgan, Barney, and then Myers, right? Those are the three top priorities, I would say. Now, my underrated, I have two guys who are underrated in this group. Carr from IMG. I think Deion Sanders is quietly forming an IMG Academy pipeline. You just look at some of the talented guys that he brought in. Jordan Seaton, obviously, and he had everybody and their moms coming after him. And then he also brought in London Merritt from IMG and 4-star edge, and then Alexander McPherson, defensive lineman, IMG Academy, right? So they are building a little bit of an IMG pipeline. I think that would be a nice get, right? You need size. I talked about it yesterday. Colorado is trying to build. I hate saying this because I have feelings about the SEC and the Big Ten and how they feel like they're better than everybody and all that jazz. But the teams that are most successful have the most physical offensive lines. And those teams are usually in the offense or in the SEC or the Big Ten. So it looks like Colorado is really trying to gear towards having a big physical offensive line. And I think Carr is a guy who, I don't know if he's ready to start right away, but he has the size and the potential to be, he has the frame and the experience at IMG that will obviously at least have him in position to play right away. So that'd be my underrated commit number one. Number two, I love a tall pass catcher. I do. I'm a sucker for one. Julius Miles, 6'6", 210. Gives me Johnny Wilson vibes. I don't know if you guys remember Johnny Wilson from Florida State. He was a guy who I think most people saw him as a tight end. He was 6'6", lit it up at Florida State. And I think it's one of those things where you just have to find a team who's willing to let him be him, right? I know a lot of people view these 6'6" plus guys as tight ends because they're so tall, but it's like, hey, you let them cook at receiver if they have the mobility, and guess what? All of a sudden, you're cooking with oil. You're cooking with grease, right? Johnny Wilson, last 2 years at Florida State, 43 catches or 84 catches for 1,500 yards and 7 touchdowns, right? I think Mr. Miles here, out of Florida, so you already know Coach Prime loves him some Florida guys. I think Julius Miles at 6'6", having programs like FSU, Louisville, Vandy coming after him, I think this would be a more underrated addition. I think it's a guy where he's not going to be ranked the highest, but all of a sudden when signing day rolls around, whoever ends up with him, they're going to be like, that's a good get. So those are the guys who I am really high on this visitors list. The other guys would be great additions as well, but those are my three, like, oh my gosh, we just won this visitors weekend. And then my two underrated, like, okay, those guys will make an impact when they get to Boulder. So you guys comment below, which recruit are you most excited about, or which visitor, excuse me, because we also have the transfer in there. Let me know what you guys think, because obviously we all have our varying opinions. When we come back, I'm going to talk about why I think all of the negative attention around Shedeur Sanders could actually help him in two very special ways during his NFL career. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO giving you full visibility, and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building your wealth. They have surprising insights, and sometimes we need someone else to tell us what we're doing wrong, and Monarch Money will do just that, because I didn't realize how much I was spending on food delivery services, right? I get a little lazy. I'm like, I don't want to cook, so I'll order from my favorite Mexican food spot, or I'll get some sushi after the gym, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I just spent $600 this past week in food delivery, right? Maybe I could pump the brakes on that. I got a wedding coming up. I'm trying to buy a house with my fiance, right? We're trying to save money, and Monarch Money is helping us do that. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so you don't miss out on a moment of the coverage. I'm Kevin Borba, host of Locked On Buffs, and I'm here to tell you that I think all of the noise and attention around Shedeur Sanders may actually help him. Now, I think there's certain noises that won't help him. I think there's certain noises that is like proving the points of people that he could possibly be a distraction, like the fans suing the NFL for $100 million. While maybe that's funny to them, or maybe they're like, this is really just like, maybe that really did give them stress. I don't know. I think that stuff like that hurts Shedeur because he's automatically viewed as a distraction due to something that he has no control over, right? If Shedeur was going to be a distraction, it would have to be like him saying something. I don't love fans making him a distraction because they're just constantly chipping away at people on Twitter. That being said, all the attention he brings in, all of the publicity, all of the hype, whether it's positive, negative publicity, I think that helps him stick around with the Browns. Now, I'm here to tell you, I think that Browns quarterback room is terrible. I think Shedeur Sanders is a better quarterback than Dillon Gabriel and Kenny Pickett right now. I do think Joe Flacco is probably going to win the starting job. But I do think there's a way or a path for Shedeur Sanders to start. That being said, it's so obvious that Shedeur Sanders is like the golden goose, and I don't think Cleveland wants to let go of that golden goose. And let me explain to you what I mean by this. Let me go on the gram right here. We're going to do a live case study, aka me going on the gram right now doing a case study. So Cleveland has posted once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times today, right? Of those 7 posts, 1 featured Shedeur. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So 4 of those 7 posts feature Shedeur Sanders. So literally over half, right? The NFL, they've posted about Shedeur Sanders. Let's see how many times. I'm not going to count the NFL's post today because I'm sure they're a lot more active than the Browns because they're covering the sport as a whole. But the NFL today, in their first handful of posts, Shedeur Sanders is one of them, right? 3 hours ago, they posted a picture. First day of minicamp, Shedeur Sanders, just stretching, doing little leg raises, right? Congrats, I guess, like exciting. Travis Hunter, they posted him once as well. But needless to say, I think the Browns know that letting Shedeur Sanders walk would be a PR nightmare, right? I think they're giving him a fair shot, and I think he's a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL. But I also think at the end of the day, and I hate to compare him to Bronny James because I feel like Bronny James wasn't as deserving as Shedeur Sanders was for a professional spot. Granted, Bronny James did play well in the G League. That being said, I think Shedeur Sanders is sort of going to be like a token, like, hey, we really want to drive in jersey sales, or we really want to do this. So we're going to tease fans with him, right? They did it with Johnny Manziel. The Browns know what they're doing, right? There's a reason they're posting him 4 out of 7 times in one day, right? I think Shedeur Sanders has a chance to use his fame to his advantage by sticking around. And the longer he sticks around, the more likely I think it is that he earns that starting job. I think Shedeur Sanders has a chance to be the best quarterback in that room. And I do think, I thought he was going to be a top 5 pick the entire draft process. So I'm very high on him. I think he's an NFL starter. I think he has potential to be a really good quarterback at the next level. And I think all the fame and attention he brings, while some people view it as something that hurts him, I think it's something that could help him stick on a roster. And then eventually, once you stick on a roster, you're going to get an opportunity at one point, right? That's how the NFL works. Joe Flacco's ancient. I think Joe Flacco is, if I had to guess, I'm going to say 44. That may be too much, but that's my guess. He's 40. Okay. I aged him a little bit. But that being said, 40 is not spry. And Joe Flacco wasn't even mobile during his prime, right? So how long are they going to ride with Joe Flacco? Kenny Two Gloves is not a good quarterback. So how long are they going to give him a chance, right? Dillon Gabriel, I wasn't seeing the hype as an NFL draft prospect. There was a lot more mock drafts that had him going in the 7th round and undrafted than there were in the top 3 rounds. So I think Shedeur has a chance to stick around, make an impact, and I'm very excited to see how he does. You guys comment below what you think. Over, under 5.5 games before Shedeur Sanders gets an opportunity, whether it's with the Browns or another team. I think it's with the Browns, but you guys let me know in the NFL. Appreciate you guys for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, so make sure to like, subscribe, follow. I will see you guys on Monday. I hope all of you have a great, safe, blessed, and fun weekend. Have a good one. I'm Kevin Borba. This has been Locked On Buffs.